Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and if anybody is echoing like Mark Sanchez was on yesterday's broadcast, please let us know, and we will do something about it, unlike Fox.
No, we won't. This is Arif Hassan from the Wide Left Substack, and Ian Rappaport has given me Saints homework.
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. The Vikings are still undefeated when Blake Cashman plays football this year. Maybe he's kind of good at football. Maybe.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
What's up, and welcome into the Minnesota Football Party on a Victory Monday for the Minnesota Vikings. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are live every Monday and Thursday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first watch or listen today. For your second one, check out Luke Braun's Locked On Vikings. Great daily Vikings content there, the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. Luke was at the game in Jacksonville. He's headed back this morning to his hometown, and you can check out the audio of our show, the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. That's wherever you get your podcasts. We are brought to you today by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The Sam Darnold regression tour continues, yet the Vikings continue to win against backup quarterbacks. Vikings thought they were going to tie up the NFC North lead as well. They didn't. Lions came back and won last night. What are the Vikings' chances of legitimately vying for this division in the second half of the season? I've got oodles of nerdy stats off of yesterday's bizarre 12-7 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's Luke Inman, Arif Hassan, myself, Sam Ekstrom, with you for the next hour or so. Thanks a lot for watching, listening, and commenting. Commenters are already in a different state of mind, asking about tacos and sandwich, whether a taco is a sandwich. Burrito Bill, I'm sure we will get to that in depth later in the show. But let's start with our biggest takeaways and lessons from the Vikings win in Jacksonville. And oh yes, we will have a Sam Darnold versus Russell Wilson comparison update before the show is over. A couple of 7-2 football teams there. But Luke Inman, lessons from the win. 12-7. What are you taking away?
I guess big picture, like aerial view, this is a good football team. Can we just take out this one glaring turnover problem and you do that? And I really think they're playing some of the
Aside
better.
From that, how was the play this Lincoln?
Yeah, right. I knew that was coming. They really are though. I mean, okay, yes, we can't take out the turnover problem. Obviously, we're going to spend the next 55 minutes on that, but they are, outside of that, very, very well-rounded. Top to bottom, they are one of the better, well-rounded teams in the league. Like offensive net rating, it's great. They're moving the ball up and down the field as good as anyone. Defensively, it's a top five-ish team in almost all the important metrics and statistics, analytics, especially when Blake Cashman's on the field, by the way. Undefeated when Blake Cashman is healthy. So how do you stop the bleeding? How do you stop the bleeding with these turnover plays in Sam Darnold? Can you stop the bleeding, or is this just who he is? Is this just in his DNA? We can get into that a little bit more. Even you go back to USC days, 27 games at USC, had 36 interceptions. Now, that's not even counting the fumble turnovers he had as well. But, if anyone can do it, I like your chances with KOC and Josh McCown and the, quote-unquote ecosystem they've built here with all the weapons around him. You got Hawkinson back. But again, it also just might be who he is when you look at his track record. Coming out of college, the 6-7 years he played in the NFL before he got to Minnesota. Stop the bleeding somehow, or eventually, absolutely, it's going to come back to haunt them.
Sam Darnold turnover-worthy play rate in the first 8 weeks was 3.3%. The last 2 games, 7.1%. So there's a significant drop off there, and it's a 2-game
that actually
sample
feels
size.
low to me, just because there's so many plays. I remember even the Giants drubbing 34-6, couple boneheaded plays. That's like, whoa, head scratcher, but didn't really have to, get deep dive into those because it was such a blowout win. The Packers game, there was a couple dropped interceptions, so even 3.3% feels a little low. It feels like that regression luck is coming back to finally haunt him, and teams are cashing in on a lot of these turnover-worthy plays that it feels like he's had throughout the entire season up to this point.
Yeah, stats are saying 7% of the plays last 2 weeks, Arif, have been turnover-worthy. We also had another one, 4th pick yesterday, that was nullified due to penalty, which would have been about the craziest play ever because you had a fumble at the end of that we never got to really digest. But is Darnold clearly the biggest takeaway, the Darnold performance despite the win, what you're remembering from this one?
Yeah, no, of course. I was making fun of what Luke was saying about, like, aside from the turnovers, but that is, I think, a legitimate vector of analysis. It just sounds funny and it's difficult to justify. So
It's tough to swallow. I get it. I get it.
But I think one way to think of this is if we take a look at quarterbacks that typically have that many turnover-worthy plays, which I think that'll regress positively. Like, I don't think he'll continue to have like 7%. His career turnover-worthy play percentage, of course, is one of the worst among quarterbacks in the NFL because he's had a bad career. That's 4.1%. He'll regress down. That's not going to be a persistent issue. If we take a look at, and here's what's different about his career over the last 3 years versus his career in total. If we take a look at all of the plays that were not turnover-worthy plays, we can get a good sense of how good he is from play to play or down to down. And his play on non-turnover worthy plays for the first 4 years of his career was bottom of the league. It's second worst or something like that of like 35 quarterbacks. Now, over the past 3 years and in a Vikings uniform, it's top 5. So when he is not throwing turnovers, he's legitimately a very good quarterback. I mean, that's how they got into the red zone. What was it, 5 times of their like 9-10 possessions? Like, and 2 of the possessions they didn't get to the red zone, they got to the 30, right? Like they were
in Jacksonville territory more than Jacksonville had possessions.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And so their ability to move the ball is still there. Sam Darnold is a big part of their ability to move the ball. Can't keep having those turnovers, and my belief is that he won't. These are the 2 worst games he's had in terms of producing turnovers. And I like to believe, and obviously I could be wrong about this, I like to believe he's going to be more like what he was in the first 8 weeks of the season, around 3.1, 3.3%, than he is the 7% or the 9% of this last game, honestly. This was the highest turnover-worthy play rate that he's had this season. And it's difficult for me to believe that that's what it's going to be going forward. First, because no quarterback produces a turnover-worthy play rate that high over the course of a season. But second, you don't continue playing at your worst. You don't continue playing at your best, but you don't continue playing at your worst. And so this is probably the biggest game in terms of that turnover problem that he's had. A lot of people in chat are saying that what we've been saying all year is that he's good for a couple of stupid plays, boneheaded plays, over the course of the game. There were just a couple more of them in this game, and he happened to be punished for them. And so that's another thing to kind of keep in mind is that when you produce turnover-worthy plays, about 60% of them turn into interceptions, not 90, right? Like it's more likely that even if he continues producing turnover-worthy plays, we won't have as many turnovers because defenses aren't typically lucky enough to grab them all. Now, this is kind of interesting because the Jaguars are one of the worst turnover-producing teams in the NFL heading into this game, and the fact that they were able to convert all of these turnover-worthy plays into catches were not for like one, penalty. That's curious, right? I think they were 3rd worst in interception rate in the league. And that's like really frustrating that they doubled, or they more than doubled their interception.
Decided to just show up against the Vikings. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that sucks, but I don't think that that's who Darnold is for the rest of the season. And Jesus, let's talk about the
I'm going to keep it on Darnold, and then we'll
Sure.
pivot to defense. Just
real quick on Darnold,
yeah.
Sam, that 7% turnover rate, you said that was the last 2 weeks?
Last 2 weeks.
Turnover
And
worthy
where
play
does
rate.
where does that rank among the 32 starting quarterbacks the last 2 weeks? I assume it's bottom 10 at least. Minimum,
that is
if not bottom 5.
Yeah, so that's fourth, tied for fourth. One of those quarterbacks is Stafford, who's only played one game. Drake May and Joe Flacco were higher.
There you go.
So it's pretty
Flacco
bad league-wide.
against the Vikings defense. By the
But
way, for one of those
point
weeks.
of order. Trey Lance is higher than all of them. I just wanted to. His turnover worthy play rate of 12.5% over the last 2 weeks is the worst in the NFL.
I don't see that has not updated on PFF yet for me, but
It
I
has.
believe you.
It's just the minimum dropbacks probably prevented you from
dropbacks.
because he's only had 8 dropbacks. Yeah.
Correct. Very good. How would you rather get to 12 points is the question, right? Like, would you rather get to 12 points?
That's the question.
The conservative
love it.
way, right? Like, how many games were we upset with Kirk not taking any chances whatsoever? The check downs, holding the ball too long in the pocket, getting sacks, but then he ends the game and he's got, 220 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, but you feel like you went 3 and out 7 times and you didn't move the ball. Or Sling and Sammy, where you move the ball consistently the entire game between the 20s, up and down the field. Yes, 57 first downs combined the previous 2 weeks. Let me give you a nerdy stat appetizer. You know how many Vikings quarterbacks, and this is more of an offensive stat, not a Sam Darnold stat. I would say the offense is playing great right now. Sam
I agree.
Darnold
They are.
is holding it back, but
There were
only
two
two quarterbacks.
players on the offense yesterday that actually played poorly, and the rest of them played out. One of them's Cam Robinson. You kind of understand it, right? Like
Yeah.
the rest of them played like out. Even Ed Ingram, right? They played outstandingly.
Only 2 quarterbacks have overseen an offense that had 57 or more first downs in a 2-week span. Favre did it twice in 2009 and Cousins in 2020. That's it. It's only happened. And those guys had like 58 and 59 first downs in a 2-week span. So like almost a team record in first downs in a 2-week span. So that speaks to a ton of stuff going right, a ton of stuff going well, and a quarterback that is just derailing you at the worst possible moments, but he's also getting you into the red zone where he can break your heart more with that interception versus I think what we saw a lot of in previous years where there would just be complete blackout games by Kirk where there's no movement whatsoever. The 3-and-out rate is absurd. So how would you rather get there? How would you rather get there?
So first of all, I want to acknowledge how hilarious the chatters have been. Generic Martini, 6 safeties, best way to get to 12 points. Totally agree.
Love it.
Phenomenal argument. PHT NVL, give me 12 by touchdown, field goal, and safety. Howdy, TD missed XP, TD missed XP.
I'm all for
Love
it.
them. Love them. All the combinatorial mathematics in our chat. Love it. Okay, so I would rather throw a pick in the end zone, in the end zone or in the red zone than punt from my own 30, right? Like I think that's superior. It just feels worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would rather, someone give me a delicious meal and then take it away from me after 3 bites than never having gotten a meal at all. But it will feel worse, right? But that is a better situation, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Also, I do want to point out that the nature of these interceptions is not such that it is 100% Sam Darnold's fault, the ones that he threw. In fact, I think the one that he's most at fault for is the one that was called back. But the first one, Jefferson lost the rep, period. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a ton of he not only loses at the catch point against Tyson Campbell, which is an important point, right? He loses at the catch point. Tyson Campbell gets his arm in there. He doesn't secure the ball. It bounces off of him and it goes to Foye shot at Luakun, right? That I don't think is Sam Darnold's fault. That's more Jefferson's fault, which is not to say, of course, Jefferson's a bad player or anything like that. But also on that play, Jefferson's release doesn't give him any space. Campbell showed remarkable patience not to fall for the bait, and then also outpowers him at the stem so he can stay in phase. Now, maybe Darnold shouldn't have thrown it at Jefferson, but Jefferson does get inside leverage. I understand if that's your first read and it's Jefferson, you throw to your first read. There is space there, but Jefferson didn't help. So I think that's more Jefferson's fault than Darnold's. And then the third interception is interesting. As Mark Sanchez pointed out on the broadcast when his mic was working, that was an issue of how you run a corner route in that situation, whether or not you flatten it or throw it deep to the far pylon. And they just had a disagreement over what to do. Now, I tend to think that it is more Darnold's fault, but it's not wholly Darnold's fault, that communication error between the two. The timing was a little bit off for a kind of a near corner anyway, so I didn't love the throw. But I don't think those interceptions were entirely on Darnold upon review. So I wanted to point that out, too, that's probably going to get resolved because it's not like he's just throwing picks. Second one completely his fault.
The first one entirely, yeah. Tip ball. Jefferson lost the route. I believe 2 of those picks were from clean pockets, though. Where
the second one he had.
Second one's entirely his fault.
But
the third one was a clean pocket. It was just a miscommunication between Jefferson and Darnold about where the route needed to go.
Yeah.
So clean pocket, sure, but that doesn't change anything about that particular issue.
Yeah, and this is one breath after saying that like Darnold does some things that Kirk didn't do. One thing Kirk did do, he had a way of putting the ball up in a contested way where it was less likely to be intercepted. For whatever reason, he seemed to be able to give Jefferson a better chance and make it a true 50-50 ball. Whereas a lot of these efforts, particularly around the boundary, I don't think Darnold is as great of a boundary thrower.
That's fair.
Yeah, especially if you watch Cousins do it with Thielen or Diggs, not just Jefferson. Those sideline shots were like, it's either Diggs or no one, right? Like there's a lot of that, and Diggs had just insane awareness to catch some of those on the sideline, right? And I think the Jefferson catch of the decade, whatever, right? Which I mean, we've already had like 3 catches this year that challenge it, but the Jefferson catch on 4th and 18 against Buffalo. Like, okay, yeah, the Buffalo DB had a remarkably good shot at it, but it definitely put Jefferson in a position to win the ball. And I think you're right that some of these contesteds aren't as friendly from Darnold as they are from Cousins. That said, I think that you're largely right that Darnold is a more aggressive quarterback that's going to kind of push things more. You're going to get a couple more first downs as a product of it, but then you're going to end up in situations where you're kind of wondering like, well, what do we get out of that? So there's that.
More takeaways, including great defensive performance. We'll do an all 22 on the Kevin O'Connell post-game game ball speech and whether it resembled our impression from last Thursday. Because it went, I mean, the guys who got game balls were the exact guys that we said would get game balls. And of course, more nerdy stats coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. We are brought to you today by Arif Hassan's favorite beverage, 5 Hour Energy.
Hey, let's go.
They know over at 5 Hour Energy that you got to have passion to be a football fan because it's a way of life and it takes a lot of energy to power through a tailgate, touchdown celebrations, agonizing 12-7 wins in Jacksonville. That's why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like Luke Braun, who was in Jacksonville yesterday. The fans who are first in the parking lot and last to leave, we see you. We love you. I got a lot of fan fuel yesterday from the snapping of Jake McQuaid, the holding of Ryan Wright, and the kicking of JP Romo. Yes, fan fuel for me with those special teams battery. I love it. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. So with the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, keep fueled throughout the day and throughout the season. It's available at 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. We are also presented today by Prize Picks. I know Luke Inman had some sweet entries yesterday. Have to check in whether or not they won because you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks in 30 different states, including Minnesota. You can get action on sports. Best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million users. Sign up today. Cross-sport entries are a lot of fun, and there's a lot of sports going on to get those unique entries together. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. Don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. They also offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, each Tuesday. That's tomorrow. Prize Picks discounts, select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So today, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once more, first $5 lineup, use LOCKEDONNFL, get $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Vikings win 12-7. They're 7-2. The defense, second consecutive week, dominant. I think my bold prediction on Friday on the roundtable, I said they wouldn't allow a defensive touchdown for a second straight week. They allowed one, came early in the game.
Rip.
And aside from the touchdown drive, the Vikings permitted 34 plays for 73 yards with 3 takeaways. Just absurdly productive. It was the best yards per play performance for the Vikings defense since 2020 at Soldier against Nick Foles. And Luke Inman, you've been all over the Cashman thing. It just looks better when Cashman's on the field. He does things that Camus just doesn't do, from the linebacker position. The way he gets after the quarterback, it's just different, and it's better. And it was good to have him back. And what is he now? 6-0 on the year?
6-0, baby.
With Blake Cashman, yeah.
6-0. Yeah, and the other thing too is it's not just a Camus thing, and Camus done fine filling in, but it's taking so much extra homework off a guy like Ivan Pace, who we all love, but that dude started 14 games. I mean, we forget just how crazy it was to bring in this UDFA, have him come in, make the impact he did last year, and then just expect him to continue at that trend with the green dot when Cashman goes out. He is just a see ball, get ball kind of guy. He likes to play fast. Those extra 25 seconds pre-play, it adds up over a game, and I just think having a veteran like Cashman, clearly, I mean, the proof's in the pudding so far, is helping not just Ivan Pace, but the entire defense. I remember the Rams game. It just felt very sloppy as far as communication goes. If you watch the game back, there was defenders pre-play and after a big splash play happened, hands up in the air, looking around, what's going on. It looked like a communication thing. When Cashman's been on the field, the communication just looks tenfold better. And I know the one thing, if you look at the Vikings defensive statistics, they're top 5, top 10 in multiple categories. The one thing is they struggled to limit the explosive plays. I think going into this week, they ranked 25th. But you got to remember, too, when Cashman's been on the field, that is basically subtracted in half. I think it went from 24%, and granted, that was versus the Lions offense, that was versus the Rams offense, but explosive plays 24% of the time versus those two opponents, I should say, and that went down to 13% when Cashman's been on the field. So all in all, yeah, just it's a good defense either way. And again, props to Camus filling in pretty solid. Props to Ivan Pace wearing the green dot when he's had to. But when Cashman's been on the field, they have just been so much more well-rounded and play a cleaner type of game, top to bottom, from start to finish. They play great run defense. They're turning the ball over. As long as everybody stays healthy, I think this stuff is sustainable, and I think this should be a top 5 type of defense when it's all said and done. They're just playing lights out.
Arif, better celebration after a takeaway, Harrison Phillips gritty or Cam Bynum ray gun?
I love Harrison Phillips, but I have to go with ray gun. And it is outstanding that he was able to top I don't know if he topped Parent Trap, but like put Parent Trap into a conversation with someone else, or another one. I shouldn't say someone else, but another celebration. Just incredible celebration chemistry on this team right now. Just perfect.
The rehearsal time put in is substantial. It's not nothing.
It has to be.
Yeah, like, and I wonder when it fits in.
It is paying off.
When does it fit into the day? Like, you've got, like, I've been at TCO enough. Like, they've got the schedule. It's like 6 a.m. breakfast, 7 a.m. meeting, 8 a.m. lift. 10 a.m. special teams. Like, when does the celebration coordination fit into the day? That's what
I think it's a
curious
nighttime
about.
routine.
I think it's either nighttime or during special teams. One of those
could
two.
be. That could be.
Right. If you're not a special teamer, that's where you go to the side room and have a little meeting.
Like, all right, hey, does everyone watch the Olympics? If you haven't, okay, let's watch this video. This is film for us. We gotta break it down. Right?
Breaking down a ray gun frame by frame.
Yeah.
And
now most people would say, dude, put that time into studying more. No, this is his motivation. This is what gets him extra amped up to make sure he holds on to that Willie Mays over the shoulder. Great interception, by the way.
So I retweeted this from Forrester yesterday. It seems like Cam Bynum has better ball tracking than like 90% of NFL wide receivers, and it's motivated solely by his desire to perform elaborate celebration rituals. Like, keep it up, man.
No, seriously, though. Yes.
Whatever, like, if it's working, right? So why would I mess with that?
It's a movie, as Bynum would say. Defense, fantastic. Mac Jones, he only threw one ball, Arif, and we talked about this, I think, Thursday. His deep ball was terrible last year, worst in the league. He threw one. One ball over 18 yards.
And it was Reagan.
It was the Bynum pick. Led to Reagan celebration. Really, like, Doug Peterson.
He was getting a little heated out there when a couple guys weren't on the same page with him. Hey, you got to break that off at 9 yards, not 7. What are we doing? He got a little heated out there.
There were about 2 minutes there where they showed him in the Jaguars jerseys as a kid, and he had the touchdown drive, and I was thinking, oh, man, Mac is home. Mac is playing for his family and friends.
The
and then the rest of the game
happened. The problem is that it's not that he turned into a hometown hero. He turned into a Jacksonville guy. That's exactly how a Jacksonville
right on brand
plays.
Yeah,
on brand. It was entirely. So, the defensive performance was outstanding, right? They like negative 0.3 EPA per play. Mac Jones is held to negative 0.26 EPA per play. And, I think that a lot, like, I tweeted out, like, hey, this defense performance was outstanding. Obviously, just the one scoring drive, but just like play to play, forcing all these punts, etc. Really fantastic. Someone was like, well, I mean, they were playing not just the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they were playing like the Mac Jones Jaguars. And fair enough. So I looked at the Jaguars' performance throughout the year, and this was by far their worst offensive performance in EPA per play, in points per drive, in total points, in first downs. Worst performance, right? Okay, well, they also had a backup quarterback in. Well, this was like, of his career, Mac Jones's 5th worst game in all of those metrics. Like, this is a truly excellent defense that's making bad offenses look catastrophic, right? This is exactly what happened with the Colts. Worst performance offensively the Colts put up in EPA per play. Worst performance Joe Flacco's put together in the past 2 years. Like, that's what the defense is doing. And this is what great defenses look like when they go up against bad offenses. Like, you're supposed to, choke them out. You're supposed to make it impossible for them to breathe. And that's exactly what they did. So obviously that doesn't scale perfectly, right? You want them to do that against good offenses. I've got fantastic news on that front. They've been doing that. So I don't see any room to, like, obviously there's a ton of room to nitpick certain defensive performances and stuff like that. I don't see any room to be skeptical of this defense overall. I think that they did really wonderfully.
There was a great little tidbit. It was Ben Lieber on his post-game segment Between the Lines. He said he interviewed Blake Cashman after the game, and Cashman told him at halftime, they said, okay, what are they doing? We got to make some adjustments. And obviously every team, both offense and defense, makes some adjustments. They tweak some stuff at halftime. But he said that they added 4 different new sim pressures at halftime and said, if they're doing this, let's throw these new looks at them, because they don't know, they haven't seen these before, and especially a guy like Mac Jones, specifically to Arif's point, step on the throat on bad quarterbacks and bad offenses. Let's see if that can start to get in his head and slow things down a little bit even more so. And clearly it worked. But again, I don't want to take that and run with it again. Every team makes adjustments at halftime, but to hear they added specifically 4 new sim pressures in that second half, and then to watch it unfold and see it pay off the way it did, just another chef's kiss to Brian Flores.
This is one thing I really like about the Brian Flores approach to defense. And actually, you can tell, like, Bill Belichick also embraces this for whatever his reputation has been that the feedback that they get from players on the field is like really crucial to the way that they continue to call and develop the game plan. Like there are like really good clips of like Bill Belichick talking to like actually Stephon Gilmore, right? Where they're like, hey, so the receiver ran this route on this play, and we think that their adjustment's going to be X, so we're going to do Y to combat the adjustment that they haven't made yet. And then you see that it turns into like a pick six or something like that. And that conversation between defenders that the defensive coordinator trusts and the defensive coordinator to kind of produce these moments and allow smart players to play smartly, I think is one reason the defense can continue to be kind of a high level defense in the way that you couldn't last year because it was a paper mache defense. It was like put together kind of ad hoc. There wasn't like a system. And now players are operating within the system and then innovating on the system as opposed to innovating on like the 3 plays that they had all year. So I love it. Yeah.
Blitz rate, number 1 in the league. Pressure rate, number 2 in the league. It's working out the way that it's supposed to work out.
On the broadcast 56. Too, and I would love to know the numbers. Sorry to cut you off here, Sam, but just real quick, like they kept saying, and I'm sure Reef has these numbers top of his head anyways, but first and second down is when they're blitzing so much more than the rest of the league, and third down is when they're doing the sim pressure. And they imagine being a quarterback. Even remember through 4 weeks, it was like, all right, if anybody's going to figure out this defense, it's probably going to be a veteran quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers or maybe a Joe Flacco who's seen it all. But then they get to those third downs, and it's like they have no idea what to expect because obviously it's not always just sim pressures. Sometimes they do bring some pressure. But, they have every offense and quarterback specifically, and offensive line for that matter, on their heels right now throughout the entire – I mean, it's truly like, everybody's playing checkers – Brian Flores is playing chess right now. He is truly in his bag right now, and it is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I can get to that super quick if you want.
Yeah,
if you got him. Yeah, I'm just curious.
I would say that Stafford and Goff and McVay and Ben Johnson, maybe they didn't like break the Vikings defense. Maybe they just have really good personnel and are really good offenses, right? Like they didn't expose the defense
right?
or to the rest of the league. We're going to get into, Jared, the Lions win last night and what it means kind of for the Vikings as well. But Arif, you work on getting that. We'll come back. Arif's also going to reveal the Russell Wilson versus Sam Darnold update. Had a preseason bet on how their seasons would play out. And I was on the Russell Wilson side. And I feel like it's a good week to update this to benefit me. So let's take a look at where we stand coming up next on the Minnesota Football Party. Had a real conversation with my wife last night. She said, hey, I'm going to make like a new steak recipe this week. And I said, oh, I know exactly where. No, I know exactly where you should get these steaks because we have a great new partner, Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. Skip the holiday hustle and bustle. Save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early. Score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. 5 generations of experience delivering the world's best steak experience. Legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. 50% off. OMAHA steaks.com. Omaha. Extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. Great new offer right now for new customers at FanDuel.com. Bet 5. And if that 5 wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is so intuitive and easy to use. It's the #1 sportsbook for a reason. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Vikings did not cover yesterday. We'll look ahead momentarily to that Titans line. Vikings should be favored once again. Right now, I'm sweating the Rams -1.5 tonight. I need it for our Week 10 bets. You can check out that live line as well during the game tonight. If you have a hunch during the game, you want to bet it live, you can do that at FanDuel.com. Bet 5, win that bet, get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. Make every moment more. All right, Arif Hassan hit us with the first and second down blitz rates.
Okay, so I don't actually have the blitz rates, I have the ranks. So the Vikings are first in the NFL on blitz rate on first down, first in the NFL on blitz rate on second down, but they're actually third in the NFL on blitz rate on third down. So they actually are blitzing quite a bit. It depends on how you define a blitz, of course, as well. But the thing is, the gap on first down and second down is immense. It's enormous compared to other teams who don't really like to blitz first and second down. On third down, the gap is much smaller. Of course, they're not even first. And so they are at the high end. The thing is, on third down, they're very often sending 4, but the 4 they're sending aren't always the 4 kind of defensive linemen.
Dallas Turner's dropping back in coverage.
Exactly.
They're bringing a nickel.
And so like Ivan Pace or Josh Metellus or Harrison Smith or whoever is rushing the passer.
Yeah.
And so you talk to some defensive coordinators. I remember Wade Phillips had like a huge issue with the way that these statistics define blitzes, because he thought rushing 5 wasn't necessarily a blitz if you're a 5-man front, and rushing 4 could be a blitz if you're sending an off-ball linebacker. And so he didn't really love the way that we define blitzes. It's really useful shorthand. But the Vikings, like you mentioned, with their sim pressures, are sending 4, but they're sending 4 at unusual angles or with overloads. Like we've seen some good overload fronts on Hail Marys this year that have been like, we're sending 3, but all 3 are coming from one side. So good luck with that, kind of stuff. So, first, third. That third is unusual, though.
All right, Arif-Hassan, we need another reveal from you statistically. So before the season, we had about an hour-long debate, Russell Wilson versus Sam Darnold. Now, I was the Russell Wilson apologist to many people's chagrin, while you all sat here and said how bad the Steelers were, how they were going to win 0 games this year, and they're 7.
No, I said the Steelers were going to. I think I was actually. I mean, I wasn't
you were
credit to Inman on that. Yes.
Yeah, you didn't specifically stake a claim, but you were skeptical of me taking the under on 7.5 wins, which there's still time.
I think my exact quote was the Steelers, Mike Tomlin is going to go over 500 again this year because Cordell Patterson is going to abuse these new kickoff rules, which, that part hasn't come to fruition.
You also were pretty impressed with the winning record that they managed under Kenny Pickett, which, fair enough.
That's true.
So we had 3 measures in which we would evaluate Russell Wilson versus Sam Darnold. Now, I'm sure Sam Darnold's winning because they are somewhat volume-based.
Yeah, I stacked the deck. I really put the screws to you when we came up with this one.
Well, tell us where we're at, because I feel like I gained ground yesterday. We're about the halfway point of the year. There's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. There's still time to hit the under on 7.5 wins. So the first one was adjusted net yards. Now, if we had done adjusted net yards per attempt, Russell Wilson would be ahead of Sam Darnold. But he's only played 3 games. He's only had 85 attempts, whereas Sam Darnold's had 179 attempts. So in total adjusted net yards, Sam Darnold ranks 15th. Russell Wilson ranks 37th. So you got quite a bit of ground to make up.
Okay, but I'm winning the battle in average, which I will take. I'll take solace in that.
You'll take, okay. Yeah, that's a consolation prize. Like, I'm still winning the bet, but maybe the point that you're making, could be salvaged because of this. In total expected points, again, so in expected points per play, what Wilson is outpacing Darnold. In total expected points, it's actually quite close because of how damaging those interceptions have been. Darnold ranks 17th and Wilson ranks 18th. So
neck and neck, you say?
Yeah, they're 1.5 expected points apart. So that's where you're closest. And then we did total PFF grade. And that one's tough because in expected points, there's a wide range, right? Because you can go negative in expected points. Really difficult to go negative in adjusted net yards. Impossible to go negative in PFF grade, like statistically impossible. So this is where you're the furthest apart because of the close range, where volume just matters a lot because it's PFF grade times dropbacks. And Sam Darnold ranks 17th and Russell Wilson ranks 37th. So that one, unless Darnold gets hurt, I don't see you catching up.
Okay. What about just overall grade?
In overall grade, I am pretty confident you are significantly ahead. Let me double check to make sure. You're not significantly ahead. It's 72.3 to 72. They are right next to each other.
and Darnold's ahead by 0.3. So I am winning 2 of 3 average based, and obviously Wilson is losing in the volume based area. But I feel like I'm relatively vindicated, which is all I care about, is that I can make excuses for
a 3-game sample, actually. So I don't know how vindicated you are.
I am presently. I'm
if
considering
Darnold's 3 best
vindication.
games. I don't know.
We'll check back in 3 weeks, and we'll see. We'll see if the over has hit on 7.5, and we'll see where Sammy sits against Russell Wilson.
Either way, you're feeling a lot better than you were a month ago.
Yeah, I would imagine, right? Yeah.
Was looking
part
there
of
for a
me
minute.
was hoping when the Justin Fields Russell Wilson benching conversation was happening that they were just going to stick with Fields for the purposes of winning this bet. That would have been hilarious.
They listened to the
if
pod.
Wilson
huge fans
never got on the field. That'd be so funny.
I never had doubt. Time for nerdy stats.
Analytics fans rejoice. It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
The Vikings made NFL history yesterday. Yes, they did. This is the history they made. The first NFL team ever to score 12 or fewer points and have 28 or more first downs in a win. Only 6 have done that ever to have that few points and that many first downs, and 5 of them lost. The Vikings are the only team to win with those parameters. Mic drop.
Not bad.
Inman.
Extremely funny.
Yeah, that is good. Let's see. Offensive net success rate. So of all the offenses that played football yesterday, so we got to take out the Ravens-Bengals Thursday night game. But nonetheless, the Vikings were essentially tied with the Eagles for the number 1 offensive net rate in the league. So just from, again, we already talked about this, an efficiency standpoint, yards per play, all that stuff. The Vikings were step for step with Philly and what they did yesterday. And I don't know if you know this, but the Eagles put up 34 points and beat the Cowboys 34-6. So that is the type of production they had offensively, on par with the Eagles, what they were doing versus the Cowboys. Only problem, obviously, you can't have 3 turnovers all in the red zone. That wipes out 21 potential points. You tack on 21 to the 12 they got, you're at 33 points, almost identical to what the Eagles put up as well. So this game was crazy lopsided on both sides of the ball, and the offense did cook almost better than any other offense in the league yesterday.
And what'd you say their red zone success rate dropped like 10 spots in the league? Someone said that before the show. I can't remember who that was. But they
not
dropped
me, but that would be
maybe I heard it on. I might have heard it on KFAN. They it dropped from like 6th to 20th.
Wow,
with an 0-5 game. Arif Hassan, nerdy stat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much in the way of nerdy stats because I was focused on all the other stats like the Mac Jones
you gave
one and
good ones already. You've contributed.
Yeah, but I will say, as an update, the Vikings still number 1 in blitz rate, but number 3 in pressure rate, according to Sport Radar, which is a pretty significant change over last year when they were number 1 in blitz rate and like number 9 or something like that in pressure rate. So despite all the blitzes, they weren't getting a ton of pressure last year. This year they are, and that is despite the fact that they're also top 10 in forcing opponent time to throw. Opponent time to throw, I think, is like 9th fastest in the NFL. And teams are clearly getting rid of the ball quickly to avoid the blitzes, and yet the Vikings are still getting pretty significant pressure, which means I think they're like 4th in opponent completion percentage over expected, 4th best as a defense. So that's nerdy stats, right?
That's good. And I think on Pro Football Reference, 2nd in pressure rate, and I don't know what PFF would. PFF doesn't actually have season-long blitz rate, pressure rate rankings that I can see, but they all measure it differently.
You need like PFF Ultimate.
Yeah, you need like the team subscription to get that. This was going to be a 4-minute drill question. Luke's gone, so it's a 3-minute drill. Have you given up hope, or to what extent are you hopeless that the Vikings can catch the Lions after watching the inevitability of last night's Lions comeback? When it was 23-20 I knew it was over.
Yeah.
There is an inevitability about that team. And the Vikings are 1 game back, and it feels like they're 4 games back.
I don't feel it doesn't feel like that to me at all. They're 1 game back. Lions are on the schedule.
Talk me off the ledge.
Fine.
Talk me off the ledge.
No. I mean, it's. What the Lions were unable to accomplish in the first half is a good example of how the Lions are not a perfect team, right? It is difficult to find weaknesses, right? I'm not going to discount that, right? But the Lions are not a perfect team. They stumble a lot. They're very reliant on a running game and a clean pocket. Now, they've got a really good offensive line, a little bit banged up. They've got a really good offensive line, and they've got, a great running game. But when you're that reliant on making sure that your quarterback has a clean pocket, there are weaknesses to what you can do. Obviously, the Vikings have to adjust when they play each other again. But the Lions certainly have they are not the consistent type of team that you'd expect an overwhelming juggernaut to be. And so I don't see the Lions as a team that is absolutely going to power through everything. I mean, they got into a close game for a reason. So I think that the Vikings are not 4 games back spiritually or anything like that. They obviously had, some struggles over the past 4 games that they didn't over the first, couple of games this season. But the Lions have also had their moments where it didn't look like everything was aligned perfectly for them. The Vikings are 1 game back, and they've got the Lions remaining on the schedule. It's fine.
Yeah, and look at the schedule coming up, too. Titans, Bears, Cardinals, Falcons, back to the Bears at home. If you go off just DVOA, which takes strength of schedule into account, obviously, Vikings have a higher DVOA than all 5 of those teams. So there is a real world where they push this thing to the wire. It can all come down to week 17 and 18, Packers, Lions. That's not out of the realm of possibilities by any means, like Arif's saying. Problem is, right, devil's advocate, knowing you're already down the 1 game plus the head-to-head, you need some help from the Lions, it feels like. And when you look at their schedule, there's only 2 real games I see a possible slip-up. That's versus the Bills in Detroit and then versus the Niners in San Francisco. And even if they went 1-1 in those games, I'm still not 100% sure that would be enough to make everything come down to week 18 for all the marbles for the division, unless the Vikes pretty much ran the table for the most part. And I only say that, again, because Detroit is playing such good football. It really does feel like they are the team to beat in the NFC. And if they can still find a way to win when their quarterback throws 5 interceptions against a good opponent, it just doesn't really feel like it's in the cards. But never say never. I'm not if I was a betting man, I'm not betting that they're going to catch up to them, even with the odds, even with the value. But nonetheless, I mean, you got to kind of give props to Detroit for putting themselves in this position to basically give us virtually no room for error from here on out.
Yeah, the Texans defense is one of the best in the NFL. It's a top 5 defense. The Vikings defense is better. In a world where the Vikings get 5 interceptions of Jared Goff, I think their offense performs better than
100%.
Because the Texans have 1 receiver, right? Like that's a huge issue for them.
Yep.
And we saw that. And the Vikings healthy have 2 really elite players at their position. I don't know. I mean, Hawkinson elite, you can quibble, right? But 2 really high-level players at their position and a great set of complementary skill players, like Aaron Jones, like Jordan Addison. Like
Josh Oliver won't go away. He won't go quietly
Josh Oliver.
Watch out.
What a catch yesterday.
Six of his top 7 receiving performances are in a Vikings uniform.
Yeah.
2 of his 3 top receiving performances occurred these past 2 weeks, right?
and I forgot, everybody was so infatuated with the Cam Robinson revenge game. I forgot Josh Oliver was drafted by the Jaguars. He only spent 1 year. Yeah, right.
Whoa.
There. But, tight ends yesterday for the Vikes, 12 catches, $126. You'll take that. That's unbelievable.
Guess what the FanDuel odds are on Detroit winning the division?
Minus 160. Minus 180.
Arif?
I was going to go minus 180.
All right, it's minus 440.
Woo!
How do you feel now?
That's interesting. Well, I think
feel great. I might actually take that value now.
Plus 500 on the Vikings.
Yeah, I might actually take that value now.
Easy money.
Easy. They're giving away money. Vegas, they're giving away money.
Yeah.
That's a bank account now.
I said on the postcast, Arif, I think the Vikings kind of have to run the table during this present 7-game stretch where they're going to be favored every week. And they knocked off the Colts and Jags off that. They have 5 more. These next 2 road games are against pitiful offenses. Then I think that the home games are actually tougher because you've got Cardinals can put together a really good performance. Kirk revenge game, going to be interesting. You got to win all of them. I think you got to get to 12-2, and then you got Seattle and Green Bay after that. Split those, and hopefully the Lions lose one game along the way to put you within
the Lions still have the Bills on the schedule. They have the 49ers on the schedule, and hey, they got the Vikings on the schedule. That's tough.
You got to be within the game.
We have played the Cardinals, it feels like, almost every year.
A lot.
It feels like. And
it kind of reminds me of that stretch where over like 13 years they played the Giants 11 times or something like that.
yes, it's the
that
same
was
thing
crazy.
going on.
It's it feels like the same. Yeah.
You remember that loss at Arizona in the final year of Zimmer where Joseph missed the field goal?
Oh, absolutely.
What?
I'm looking at the history right now. I mean,
there's
it was 2022 when Kirk Cousins
sack.
scrambled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was 2021, 9/19, September 19th. So that was week 2.
Yeah.
You hit the Xavier
They lost
Rhodes
the first
pick six.
week.
It was like 99 yards. That was a good game.
Carson
that was
Palmer.
2018, 27-17. Yeah. Or was that 20?
A lot of history there.
Even? Yeah.
Also, the Cardinals knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs or something like that. Might have been a relatively
No.
famous game.
No.
How about Kirk Cousins? The last game they played, they won 34-26. Kirk Cousins turns into like Lamar Jackson for the first time in his career. Had that crazy like 26-yard scramble for the touchdown, rushing touchdown.
Yep. It is great.
It just feels like my point is I'm looking at the history now, and again, they have played this team
a bunch of fun games.
A lot of fun. Great. I remember so many great Adrian Peterson games. He scored 3 touchdowns in like the first half back in like.
Didn't Favre lose that? It was one of the 3 losses.
That
right?
might have been. Yeah, let's
No,
see.
Favre beat the Cardinals
09.
in overtime in 2010. That was a sick game.
Yeah,
And they lost to them.
27-24.
They lost to them in 09 when
Yeah.
EJ Henderson broke his femur. I remember
right.
that.
That was
being
a Sunday night game.
turning point. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
ugly.
30-17. Yeah, December 6th, 2009. They lost 30-17. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to update the gambling for week 10. So I'm in last now, but I'm hanging on to the Rams tonight for
you got
$1.50.
one more.
You
$1.50
got one more.
tonight.
Because if you win, that puts you in like second place or within statistical tie of second place.
Basically a tie with Braun for second. So
Yeah.
tonight's huge. Tonight's gigantic. Arif, you lead. Arif hit.
Huge
and we
week.
talked about this. Like,
That was
think
big.
about how the order influenced the results, because I think
Again.
I definitely would have taken a Hawkinson prop.
I loved
But-
Hawkinson, but I just didn't think it was going to be a close game. I didn't think it was going to be like they had to pass in the second half a lot, and then that's obviously what happened.
I mean, Arif, think if you'd taken the 70+ prop, you would have hit like plus 500.
Yeah, I'm not going to have FOMO about my bet. I am so happy with
you're
what
pretty-
happened.
pretty
Feel
happy
good about that.
Yeah. Take the money and run. So Hawkinson 60+, big hit for Arif, $330. Lost on Falcons. He's still okay with that. He's at 1247 in the lead. Luke Braun has clawed his way back. He hit Hawkinson 40+ yards. Also lost Falcons Saints over. He's at 1108.
Dude, that game
We
was
both had
stuck.
this-
That
we
game was
did the
stuck
two
at
same
20.
bets, right?
That game, I kept looking because I looked up our bets. I do that at like halftime of the noon games every week. I'm like, oh yeah, who'd everybody?
Yeah,
that
I
that
needed-
Falcons Saints game was stuck at 20-17 for like the entire second half. I swear.
Yeah, and then what was it? The Saints got to or no, it was the Falcons got the ball as they needed them to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because if they score a touchdown, Braun still doesn't get the over, but I
Right.
get my bet.
Right.
Right. I was like,
Bang.
okay, I got to do this in a way
Mhm.
where Luke still loses.
Right. Mhm.
Because I'd rather we both lose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would have been sweet. And classic Braun as well.
Yeah.
If that had happened. Inman, you had a big week in week 9 and you lost it all.
Oh boy.
You lost it
I'm
all.
all over the
JJ
map.
anytime TD, nothing. Jets -1.5.
Terrible.
Didn't quite go your way.
No, terrible.
Not
terrible.
exactly.
No. And of course, you when you lose, you go 0-2. You start playing FOMO. I like Pittsburgh +2.5, but I didn't have the guts to do that. I actually, my other bet that I really wanted was going to be Vikings touchdown on their first possession. I was like, they're so good on opening scripts. How Jaguars defense is terrible. They're going to come out. They're going to score a touchdown. That
So-
would have
yeah,
lost
so
too.
glad
That would have
you
lost
did
too.
that.
So
But
it was
not only would it have lost, it would have lost in like the tantalizing,
Oh.
annoying way, right?
terrible. Terrible. Also, you don't want to do a bet where it's like, okay, after 5 minutes, your bet either
You're out.
yeah, you're done either way. Like half the fun is for 3.5
I don't know.
hours.
I was pretty happy being out of my bet after 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was dude. 4 third down conversions on one drive. Do I have that right? It was at least 3, if not 4, for Hawkinson.
And did they actually get points off that drive? Did they? Is that an interception drive? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure those.
That's what we do.
And he just got punished on every single one
Dude,
too.
he looked like there was a moment or two where it was like, I'm thinking about maybe taking an extra
Retiring.
week or
Tapping
two.
out.
Yeah, literally. Like, can you chew on that mouth guard any harder?
Yeah, that was so much, man. Yeah.
That was tough. That was tough to watch.
Go Rams tonight. Final thoughts on the special teams battery. And did
They
you
all got game
enjoy?
balls?
They got game balls. I
KOC
thought
doesn't really have to spend money every game ball he gives out, does he?
He does.
He's
when he
averaging
gives
like
it to the whole
38 a
defense.
game.
Yeah.
Well, there's one game ball for the whole defense, and then
Okay.
3 game balls for the 3 specialists.
I thought it was one game ball for every member of the defense. I seem to remember that being the exact.
And not
wording.
only that, I feel like
Okay,
he's done that multiple times.
Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
But regardless, yeah, we pretty much predicted that. I don't know if we got the all 22 or the tape we can pull up, but probably
he
running out of
didn't,
time. now,
yeah, I thought he would lean into more with Parker Romo. Is it Parker Romo or John Parker? I like the John Parker Romo. I
So-
prefer that.
I also prefer that, and that's what he's listed on the team roster. But if you look at like his like Instagram or his Twitter or whatever, he calls himself Parker Romo on socials. So it's probably we should probably call him Parker Romo, but it seems like his preferences are not that strong for him to have been listed by the team. Because if he'd wanted to just be listed as Parker Romo by the team, he could have had that at a moment's notice. So
When I think I'll go with Parker Romo when he's good, John Parker Romo when he's bad, and when he loses a playoff game in excruciating
Romo.
fashion, Tony Romo.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I thought they'd lean into the speech more like we told this guy, be ready. You never know when we're going to call your number again. We cut him loose, and we brought him
We
back.
cut him because he wasn't good. He wasn't good enough then, but now he is.
Now, well,
I
it
didn't-
was. You're right. He didn't lean on it. It was funny because he was like, he showed up on Wednesday and he's ready.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing for McQuade.
Yep.
And then he gives a game ball to Ryan Wright because
For
McQuade
calling
messed
out.
up.
McQuade.
The bad snap. He got a little hot and heavy handed there.
Which,
Okay,
I mean,
thanks for the backhanded
admittedly,
compliment.
Ryan
Take the
Wright
game ball back.
did yeah, exactly. Ryan Wright did a really remarkable job on
Oh,
that one.
phenomenal.
Like, I don't want to, but like he is right.
Yes.
McQuade did screw that up.
Yeah.
Which I didn't. So when we recorded our show and we were talking about like how worried we were about the chemistry of that battery. First of all, I guess we were proven right by how much Wright had to adapt. But I did not realize McQuade and Parker Romo were on the same Lions roster, and so may have had some practice time together in like 4 years ago or something. So there is that. Can a player's use the game ball be reimbursed for the value of the
I feel like John Parker Romo is probably he would take that exchange. Like, yeah, I'll take the
fair enough.
$200.
Yeah,
I'm only going to get 4 weeks of game checks here, guys. I
right.
need
There's still
something.
you got to pay rent, right? Like I get it.
Yeah, like I'm moving here for a month. I got to pay. I got to live in an extended stay hotel, Holiday Inn, for a month. I need something. Throw me a bone, a little stipend. Yeah, I thought that the censors had to work overtime yesterday on the speech. I thought KOC was letting the Effenheimers fly more than usual. He was fired up
Good for
about
him.
about something. Yeah, just unfiltered.
These are the
behind-
games you bleep and remember, man.
12-7 in Jacksonville.
These are the games you remember.
The game I remember, now that we brought it up, now I'm looking up this week 2 loss versus the Cardinals because
Oh,
so
God,
much
you're still- I knew
crazy
you were still on
stuff
the
happened,
Cardinals.
dude.
I
Do you remember?
knew it.
Do you remember there was a minute left and Mike Zimmer decided to just kneel it and not try to get a couple more yards for his kicker, Greg Joseph? That's a
Yeah.
38-yarder. He should make it anyways. Or how about the all-out blitz and Kyler Murray just closes his eyes and throws a bomb to Rondale Moore. And I don't remember who, Mac Alexander, maybe? Maybe it was Mac, one-on-one, perfect position.
I thought that was a coverage confusion one where we couldn't tell who it was for a while. Because I thought Patrick Peterson was like played a role on that one. Or no,
that was just a YOLO ball. It was just a YOLO ball, and it was one-on-one, 70 yards down the field. And I think it was Mac sitting there. I could be wrong. It wasn't Harry. I'm trying to look who else. But yeah,
Luke's
thinking was on that team.
Luke's thinking of the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
like 3rd and 7. Like
the other Rondale Moore. The other Rondale Moore was early in the game.
That was a coverage bust on a scramble drill where no one covered him, and he got loose for $1 million. That was great. Yeah, we got Kyler to worry about in 3 weeks. That's going to be
crazy how much your mind wanders, Luke.
And then Nick Vigil comes out in the second half with a pick 6. What are you talking about, though?
Osborne had a bunch of yards that game, long touchdown. That was a fun one. I remember that. Minnesota Football Party. We're live Mondays and Thursdays. Ron Johnson joins on Thursdays. He also hosts the Ron Johnson Show Tuesdays and the Roundtable on Fridays. Basketball Party on Wednesdays, talking Wolves. Awful Wolves lost yesterday as well. That's Luke Inman, Arif Hassan. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Luke Braun back on Thursday. It's the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thanks for watching, listening, commenting, and subscribing. Later.